Hello, this is Dr. Randy Wilt, and this is part 2 of our topic on note cards, teleprompter, and stage fright. And we've already talked about teleprompters and note cards. In this session here, we're going to talk a little bit more about stage frights. Now, stage fright is something that we all fear and we all have to deal with, and that's just the way it goes. And why? It's because as we stand up there talking, we realize that everybody is watching us. They're judging us. They're looking at us. There's an old adage that says the three most scared a man or woman gets is marriage, death, and public speaking. And they don't know exactly which order to put it in. So for some people, public speaking is more scary than death and getting married. Other people maybe is not as scared, but one thing for sure, no one seems to be a big fan of public speaking. And not even the experts really do great every time. And it's because sometimes we get stage fright. So why does stage fright happen in the first place? It's because your body is reacting to the anxiety that you've experienced. Now, number one, you can overtake stage fright by being prepared. Practice, practice, practice. You're supposed to practice, they say, 1 time for every minute of your speech. Oh my gosh, if I'm speaking for 60 minutes, that means I'm supposed to practice 60 times? No, I don't think so. So typically the idea is you practice your speech 4 to 5 to 6 times. And as you're prepared and you got good note cards, it helps the stage fright. But now let's talk about the stage fright. So here's some symptoms: dry mouth, tight throat, sweaty hands. And let's kind of go through this real quickly. The dry mouth, what causes that? Well, it's because you're breathing through your mouth. And you probably didn't realize that. But when you are talking like I'm talking right now, I am not breathing, taking the air in through my nose. I am sucking the air very quickly back through my mouth. And as I'm doing that, my mouth is starting to dry out. And as it dries out, I'm trying to produce more saliva. And sometimes you can and sometimes you can't. If you produce too much saliva, which sometimes your body will do that, then you kind of start getting a gurgly sound. Most people don't produce hardly any saliva because their mouth gets dry. And then they start getting a little raspy in their talk. Next, you have a tight throat. Some people, when they get stage fright, their throat starts tightening up on them. And that's just a tactic that sometimes your body does to you to show that you have a fear to it, a fear going on. So what do you do in this case? You just have to kind of relax, realizing that sometimes you have water that not only helps a dry mouth, but also helps you with that dry throat. Sweaty hands, what's going on there? Well, this is because your adrenal glands, you know where those are by chance? Your adrenal glands are on top of your kidneys, and they're producing this hormone, this hormone that you got that is causing you to have that fight or flight. It's kind of like, like they say, when something desperate has happened, you can you have super strength, you can run faster, and this is what your adrenal glands are doing. They're producing that, but in the process, it's trying to cool you down. And the way it cools you down is by sweat, and also by cooling the body, by putting water on it, and your hands become sweaty. Now, not a big deal, except for I've seen people before, their hands are so sweaty that when they put their hands on the podium, they actually slide. I've seen people that their hands are so sweaty that they are rubbing the ink off of the paper. And I said in the last situation, be careful that you don't write on your hand your notes in case you get real sweaty. Cold hands, that's what anxiety does. A lot of people, when you get fearful, all of a sudden it's just the opposite. You don't get sweaty hands. It's not the adrenaline. If anything, the blood is running out of your body. It doesn't run out of your body, but it's running out of your extremities. And when it runs out of your hands and your feet, they start getting cold. Shaky hands, something else. It quite often happens with the cold hands. Nausea, I love this one because most people tell me they experience some type of nausea. What is happening with that nausea? Let me tell you. Your stomach is producing stomach acid. That's how you begin to digest your food. But when you become anxious and you become nervous, one of the things your stomach does is starts producing more stomach acid. Now, you have what's called the sphincter. If you remember when you were a baby, which I'm sure you don't, but if you've had children, you know that they're very quick to spit up. That's because their sphincter, which is the bottom of the top of the stomach, the bottom of the esophagus, hasn't matured yet, so it hasn't closed. Well, that keeps your stomach acid into your stomach. But Unfortunately, if you have too much stomach acids, then what's going to happen is that they're going to actually go up. They're going to bubble up outside of that sphincter, and it gets in your esophagus. And that's why you start feeling a little bit nauseous, and at the same time, you may have some burning down there. So what do? Well, what gets rid of the stomach acids? Let me tell you, food. So are you going to go up there with a hamburger and eat while you're talking? Of course not. But you've got to get something to control those stomach acids. That's why I always tell people, if you have a lot of nausea when you're getting ready to talk, what do? Have some crackers. Keep some crackers in your purse or maybe in your portfolio. If you happen to be talking at a meal, don't eat a bunch of food, because if you eat too much food, you will have even excessive amount of stomach acids. Eat a very light breakfast or lunch, and sometimes no more than just a piece of toast. That will take care of it. Now, I've had people say, well, I like to eat like an enchilada. Well, my goodness, the spices are going to cause the stomach acids to get even worse. What about drinking things like coffee or Cokes or tea? Okay, sometimes carbonated drinks will help you to control your stomach acids, but also they will cause you to what? They will come back. You will start burping, and that's not exactly what you want when you're up there talking. Coffee can be fine for you unless you have problems with really strong coffee. Now, one thing about coffee, remember, if you put cream in your coffee, or if you drink milk, or if you put cream in your tea, it's going to coat your throat. So the whole time you're talking, you're going to be clearing your throat. So here's a case where if you drink coffee, make sure you put very minimal cream into it or no cream at all. I always tell people, and if you can't drink black coffee, don't drink coffee, just drink tea. And you can put a little lemon in your tea or whatever. Iced tea, hot tea, doesn't matter. But be careful with the Cokes, the soft drinks. Be careful with anything that has a milk product. The fast pulse, of course, that's once again your adrenaline rushing. You're going to get a fast pulse. And unfortunately, one of the problems with your fast pulse is that you will start breathing very rapidly. And as you're breathing rapidly, this is part of your adrenaline again, you're going to do something. You know what you're going to do? You're going to probably pass out because you're getting too much oxygen into your blood system. And that you're starting to get lightheaded, either because there's not enough blood going to your head, or you are going to get dizzy because you got too much blood, too much oxygen getting to your brain. How do you take care of that? What happens when someone hyperventilates? They give them a paper bag and they say, breathe through this. And the first thing the person says, I can't breathe through this because, I can't get enough air. Where actually you can. You're trying to reduce the amount of air and oxygen you're getting into your system. Shaky knees, just like anytime you have the shaky hands and the trembling lips. A lot of people don't realize their lips will tremble. They don't realize their throat will get red. These are different things that, the adrenaline will do to you. How do you control a trembling lip? Just touch it. Anything that shakes. If your legs shake, if your hands shake, just touching it will reduce it from shaking. And of course, if you got really red necks and your chest is red, how do you handle that? I would suggest you wear something. You wear a turtleneck. You wear something that covers it up. It's hard to wear a turtleneck in August, but you can do things. And by the way, if your neck gets red, don't wear a white turtleneck. Wear a red turtleneck so that people don't see so much of that. And the last thing I want to talk to you about here is, how do you handle stage fright? Number one, use your eye contact. It makes you feel less isolated. Look for someone friendly in the crowd and talk to those people. There's always going to be some people in the crowd who, when you look at, they're going to look totally bored. They're going to look upset. Don't look at those people. Look for the friendly faces, the people who are smiling, the people who are engaging with you, and then just talk to those people. Next thing, move your hands around, change your position, and take a breath. They always say, take a cleansing breath. Lots and lots of value in that. Before you walk up, and remember this too, is that you go on stage the moment you stand up. That's when people start looking at you. Don't walk up there and then start, clearing your throat and everything else. No, do that before you ever stand up. And before you stand up, take a big cleansing breath, big breath, let it out. That will relax you. And when you're talking, try to remember to breathe. And how do you breathe? Sometimes all you've got to do is ask the question to the audience. ask a question, get the audience talking so you can take some breaths and that you can kind of tone down a little bit. Sometimes you can't do it. Other times you find that you can do it by you have a PowerPoint, you show an image, you wait for a moment, you breathe while the people are looking at the image, the photo, the picture, whatever it is. Then slow down. We have a tendency that when we're talking, we speed up. Very few people slow down when they're talking. Most people speed up. Sometimes you just got to pretend you're chatting with a group of friends. The other thing is don't hold note cards if you're scared, if you're fearful, because the audience can see your hands shaking constantly with it. So that's where you want a podium. As a matter of fact, if you are fearful of speaking, sometimes a podium is your best friend because no one can see what's going on behind the podium. They don't see your legs shaking. You can actually put your hands down where people can't see your hands, and you lay your paperwork on the podium. But once again, make sure that's not your barrier that you're trying to hide behind. And like it says here, breathe, watch your shallow breaths, and it says control your amygdala. Amygdala is your fight or flight. It's going to make you think that that you're in a terrible situation. You got to get out of there. No, you're in a fine situation. The audience appreciates you. I can tell you one thing. Last thing I want to tell you. The audience, they don't want to be up there either. There's always someone who wants to. Most people they're glad it's you and not them. I hope you enjoyed today's lecture about stage fright. Always go back, visit this later. Lots of different YouTubes and different things that you can Google about stage fright. Gives you a lot of good information. Just remember, you're not the only one who has stage fright. There's ways to always overtake it. The main thing to do is just be aware of it and be prepared. Hope you have a good day.